What's up, Blue Collar Sports? How's everybody going? Special day for us here today at Blue Collar Sports. We're bringing on somebody that we're big fans of, working over at ESPN LA, and also the voice of the Lakers, the play-by-play on the radio on AM 710. We'd like to bring him in right now. John Ireland. John, how you doing, man?
I'm good, boys. How you doing?
Good, good. You know, over here at Blue Collar Sports, we're obviously big fans of you and big fans of your show. Always admired your work, and we just wanted to ask you, what really got you into this field? Like, what made you want to become a broadcaster and get into radio?
Basically, I wasn't good enough to play sports professionally, and I thought, well, working in sports for a job would be really fun. And I thought, well, if I can't play it, I could definitely announce it. I'm a pretty good talker. When I was a kid, I wanted to be shortstop for the Dodgers, and I realized pretty early on that wasn't going to happen. And then I wanted to be the point guard for the Lakers, and that wasn't going to happen. So I used to drive my parents crazy and turn the sound down on games and do play-by-play on top of the TV and kind of train myself how to do it. And then when I got to college, I went to UCLA. I joined the campus radio station and practiced it. That's the short version. But I've wanted to do it since I was pretty young.
So I mean, now that you've I know you've done a few different radio play-by-plays over the years, but now that you're part of the Lakers and you're in Chick Hearn's, the iconic Chick Hearn, you're in his chair. I mean, what does that mean to you? How does that feel?
It's pretty surreal. I used to listen to Chick growing up. I was so into his games that my mom would come into my room and tell me to go to bed. But I would take a transistor radio and put it under my pillow, and then I put my head on top of the pillow so I could hear Chick. But my mom couldn't tell. I still had the radio on, and so I sometimes hear myself saying his phrases and his things, and wonder where that came from. And I think it's just kind of running around in my head someplace. But it's obviously if you're a Laker fan, you grew up listening to Chick. To get to do his job is one of the coolest things I would imagine I'll ever get to do. Who knows if I'll be able to top it one day, but for now it's pretty fun.
As far as radio play-by-play goes, I mean, doing play-by-play for the Lakers, that's probably about as big as it gets. When you're on your path or, your journey down this road to where you are now, did you always see yourself getting this position one day?
Well, I thought it would be, it's kind of the dream job. My first play-by-play job, I did games on the campus station when I was at UCLA, and then I've always done it in various stops. I've worked in 4 different states, and I've, kind of always dabbled in play-by-play, but the first time I ever had a regular gig was for the Clippers. They needed a guy to do about 30 to 40 games, 3 or 4 years in the late 90s, and that was my first experience with it. And I thought, wow, if the Laker job ever opened up and I could apply to do it full time, that would be awesome. And I applied a couple of times for the Lakers job and didn't get it. And then when they called me in 2011 and said, hey, we want to give you a shot, that was a lockout shortened season, so it was kind of a season-long tryout. And I once I had that shot, I kind of had the thing that if I get an opportunity to show what I can do it. And it all kind of worked out from there.
Yeah, working with the Clippers, did you ever get to meet, the crazy Donald Sterling?
I'm sorry, Chris, did I ever get what?
Did you ever get to meet the crazy Donald Sterling?
Yeah, I tell this story all the time. So, one year I went to the Christmas party, and I walked in the front door. It was in one of Sterling's apartment buildings. And I walked in, and standing in the foyer when you walked in the front of the building was Donald Sterling and a guy dressed like Santa Claus. So I walked in, and I stuck out my hand, and I said, hi, Mr. Sterling, I'm John Ireland. I'm one of your announcers. He said, John, and I said, this is my wife. My wife's name is Lisa. He goes, John, let's take a picture with Santa. So I said, great. And that's what Sterling was doing for everybody that arrived at the party.
Well, that's crazy. So, but did you ever get to see him like in his crazy antics? Like ever say anything that was kind of off the wall that kind of threw you back? Like, wow, I'm really working for this guy.
Yeah, and then when I walked in to this party, um, he said to me, "Let's take a picture with Santa Claus." So I did, and about 10 seconds later, my wife said, "Oh, I left my phone in the car. Let me go ahead. I'll go back and get it before they parked it." And I ran outside, and 30 seconds later, I walked in the front door, and I stuck my, I walked to go find my wife, and Sterling walked up to me. He goes, "Donald Sterling, nice to meet you. Let's take a picture with Santa Claus."
That fast already.
I just took a picture with you and Santa Claus like 2 minutes ago. He goes, "Oh, well, have a good time." I had done it 2 minutes earlier. Jesus.
So
Sterling was nuts. Probably still is.
yeah. So how long did you work for the Clippers?
I worked there from 97 to 2001.
And then that's when you ended up switching over to become the Lakers sideline reporter, right?
Right. And so I started doing the Laker game in on the sideline in 2002. And I did that for 9 years. And then I just finished my 4th year doing the play-by-play.
Yeah. That mean getting there in 2002 to do the sideline, that must have been kind of surreal. You're witnessing the birth of a dynasty. You get to see Shaquille O'Neal, in his prime. What was that like? I mean, and Phil Jackson sitting right there. Can you tell us a little bit of, how that was to be able to view that, right there on the court?
Yeah, it was like covering a rock band, like the Beatles or the Rolling Stones. Everywhere we went, they had a huge following. We would get in, guys, at 2 or 3 in the morning, and there'd be people lined up outside the hotel just to get a glimpse of these guys walking in. And, with Kobe and Shaq and Fish and Ori and Fox, all those guys were extremely popular. And then one year they added Karl Malone and Gary Payton. And it was just a very, very fun ride to cover. Once they hit their stride, they made it to the finals 4 times in 5 years. So, I've had the chance since I've been on board with the Lakers to cover 7 NBA finals up close.
That's amazing.
So it all started back with that first group in 2002.
Now, when you were back as a sideline reporter, were you traveling with the team as well?
My first year traveling was 2002. We did some, starting in 1999, Phil's first year, we did, they would fly me to certain games and we did the pregame show, but we weren't on the team plane. In 2002, after King passed away, they put the sideline reporter on the team plane for the first time. And that still exists today. Trudell travels with us. He's part of our traveling party. So my first year traveling and doing sidelines full time was the first year that Chick had passed away, was the 2002-2003 season.
Now, when you got those times that you were with the Shaq and Kobe team, was there really that big riff that everyone talked about between Shaq and Kobe? I mean, when you're in the same room with them, was there like an uncomfortable feeling like, wow, these guys really don't like each other?
Well, you could tell that they weren't best friends. They weren't doing a lot of stuff socially together. But I always tell people that there was never really, it wasn't palpable. Like, they weren't unfriendly to each other. They always were. I would describe it this way, that if you ever worked in a place where you have a coworker that you don't really like and you don't really dislike, but if you had a choice, you probably wouldn't work with them, but you don't mind. That's kind of how it was with Kobe and Shaq. They were coworkers. They weren't going to spend a lot of time together socially, but they were coworkers who had had great success together, and it wasn't like they couldn't be in the same room with each other, or they wouldn't talk to each other. It was never like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, now you got to see basically 2 different eras of, Kobe Bryant with the Shaq and then with the POW team. I mean, what were the big differences, if any, that you saw in either of those teams?
Well, the biggest difference was that Shaq was the leader of the early years. He was Batman and Kobe was Robin. And everything kind of gravitated around Shaq. And in the later years, the roles switched. Kobe was Batman and Powell was Robin. So basically the team leader changed. And so that, was probably the most noticeable difference. In and the early Laker teams were always the 800-pound gorilla. They were always favored. They were always considered to be hands down the best team in the NBA. The later teams, kind of surprised people. When Powell came on board, I think people felt like they could beat that team. They just, once Powell got there, they went to the finals 3 years in a row, and they were really hard to stop. But that was the biggest difference. Shaq was the early leader, and Kobe was the leader late.
Yeah, so, I mean, now you got to see, clearly, obviously you watched the finals, and you got to see how well LeBron performed. Where do you think that ranks amongst all-time finals performances? I mean, you obviously had a bunch by Jordan, the 2 by Kobe that he won the MVPs, and, you had Shaq's and so many others. Where do you think LeBron's ranks? Because right after that, everyone right away threw LeBron into this Jordan comparison. Where do you think that ranks all time?
The one that just finished, the 2014 final?
Yeah, 2015, yeah.
Yeah, 2015. As good as anything I've ever seen from one individual player. I mean, we've never seen in the NBA anybody that has the full package of skills that LeBron has. The speed, the size, the power, the strength. He's a freak. Michael Thompson, who I do the games with, says that he's probably a top 5 player already. I think you can come up with 5 names of guys that maybe have had better careers, but LeBron's coming. If this is a horse race, he'd be like that horse going really fast out of the back of the pack. He's almost impossible to describe. He's so big. He's so fast. He can shoot threes. Individually, he's as dominant as any player I've ever watched.
And watching him take this, basically nothing of a roster, pretty much him by himself, do you feel like LeBron was the only guy that could do that? I mean, no other superstar would be able to kind of do what he just did with that team?
In 2015, yeah. There was no other player in the league that could carry a team like LeBron could. I mean, if you go back in history, I'm sure you could find some guys that didn't have a ton of help that led their teams to the finals. But this was in 2015 in the modern NBA. I don't know anybody else who could have done that.
Not even Jordan?
He had help. I mean, he had Pippen. He always had a functional forward in either Horace Grant or Dennis Rodman. I mean, you look at Jordan was an unbelievable player, but he had 2 other Hall of Famers on his team. LeBron had nobody. I mean, you look at the rest of that roster, it's just, he had nobody. I don't know if we'll ever see that again.
Yeah, I mean, that's very true. But does it surprise you, even though LeBron just did all that and he went to the finals 5 straight years, that, someone like Shaquille O'Neal and Reggie Miller both are on the record saying they would still take Kobe Bryant in his prime over LeBron?
Well, I don't know if they would. Maybe I think what they were saying in some of those cases where they would take Kobe's career over LeBron's career. I don't know if anybody in their right mind in 2015, if they had to win a game, that would take Kobe over LeBron.
Even in the primes?
Career. I mean, Kobe has 5 titles, and LeBron only has 2. You can make that argument.
Yeah, definitely. So, couple days ago, we had our big draft pick, D'Angelo Russell, and Lakers are now in their rebuilding stage since so far free agency hasn't gone that well. How do you feel about the pick and bringing him in with Randall, who's healthy, and Clarkson, who is the diamond in the rough, and Kobe going out on probably his farewell tour? How do you think the team will fare with their new pick and possibly picking up whatever free agent is left?
Well, I love the pick. I think D'Angelo Russell was a really bold, fun pick. I think that he was, I was scared the Lakers were going to take the safe, conservative choice and take Okafor. So I'm really glad they didn't. I'm really glad they took Russell. I think he has the best chance to maybe pop out of this group and be a superstar. It's probably too early to say, but I really like what he brings to the table. In terms of how the Lakers are going to be, you've got to wait. I mean, you look at these free agents, and we're taping this at a time where it doesn't look like they're going to get any of the big names. I think that if the Lakers go to battle with what they have now, it's going to be a really young core with some complementary pieces. probably not a playoff team. But you got to wait and see how it's all going to pan out. Very excited about the Russell pick. It's too early to tell what the Lakers are going to look like, at least in the fall of 2015. It's just too hard to say.
So, now that the major free agents are off the table, I mean, Aldridge is likely not coming to the Lakers. DeAndre Jordan already kind of renounced the Lakers. Jimmy Butler ended up staying. Love stayed. Where do you think the Lakers end up going now in free agency?
I don't know. I mean, every time you lose one of these guys, you got to go to the next plan, the next guy on your ladder. They haven't made a restricted. We're taping this on a Wednesday. They haven't made an offer to a restricted free agent yet, which you're allowed to do, and then the other team that has his right is allowed to match it. I don't know if it would be smart to make a restricted offer to Draymond Green. I think the Warriors would probably match it. But you could do it with Tobias Harris. You could do it with a couple of other guys and see if the other team actually shows up to match it. But they're going to have to get creative because it looks like most of the big names, the guys like Aldridge and DeAndre Jordan, are probably going somewhere else.
Yeah, Tobias Harris was someone that I've actually liked for a long time, and I feel like if the Lakers could pick up Tobias Harris and maybe even sign Robin Lopez to like a 2-year deal with around anywhere between like 18 and 20 million, I think that could be very beneficial towards the Lakers and their rebuild. I mean, do you think picking up those two together would be something possible? Or is that more of a pipe dream?
I don't know. I mean, I don't hate it. I mean, if you could get Tobias Harris, that I would move on it. But remember, the word restricted means all that Orlando would have to do is match your offer. And if you offer $16 million a year to Tobias Harris, that only leaves you about $7 to offer a guy like Robin Lopez. They probably would have to look elsewhere for a big man. It's a game of numbers and of connecting dots and seeing what you can get guys to take and what you have left over after you take it, and you have to prioritize these guys. But on paper, I love your idea. I think your idea is good. It's just a matter of if you have enough money to execute.
What do you think the Lakers' chances are of Greg Monroe?
Probably not very good. It's certainly possible, but they didn't have a full-fledged meeting for him. They just flew a couple of guys back to Washington, D.C., where he lives, and talked to him about coming. I can see Greg Monroe more than likely going to Portland or maybe New York than the Lakers, but I'm not going to rule it out. I mean, you never know until these guys announce where they're going. And Monroe's unrestricted, so he can go wherever he wants. So it's a possibility, but I wouldn't make the Lakers the favorite to get it.
Yeah, so, so since this is Kobe's, most likely his last season, because it doesn't look like they're going to put anything together that would maybe entice him to stay another season after this. How do you feel Kobe will handle his last season in terms of, minute-wise and, offensive and defensive output? Will you think he's going to limit himself a lot more in comparison to what he did last year?
Well, I think so, and I think Byron is going to have to limit him, minutes-wise, to not run him into the ground. But the number I have in my head for Kobe is somewhere between 50 and 60 games. I think that's what you'll be able to count on him for. He's going to go through injuries. They're probably going to sit him on a lot of back-to-backs. I think that, they're going to try and get one last season out of him, but not necessarily try and run him into the ground. So if you're a Laker fan, and you always wanted to see Kobe, or maybe you've never seen him play in person, you should go now, and you should take advantage of it, because I'm assuming, guys, that this is going to be his last season. He could prove me wrong and come back and say he wants to play past that, but I'm working under the assumption that this is the last one.
For me, Kobe's what really, I was a kid. I'm only 28 now, so I was right around 10 years old when Kobe first came into the league. For me, it's going to be almost, like losing somebody. I grew up with him, watching him on TV. I know you actually have a pretty solid relationship with him. How's his farewell going to feel, to you, not being able to see him, out there anymore?
I tell people all the time that we're not going to fully know how much we miss this guy until he's gone. I mean, he gave Laker fans a reason to come to the arena every night. And even if it wasn't to see a win, just to see him play and the type of stuff he can do was worth the price of admission. And, there's a lot of people that like to rip him. But, I kind of pride myself as a shameless Kobe apologist. And I'm never going to rip him because I think that he more than delivered on everything that we thought he would when they drafted him way back in '96. So, he's going to play 20 years in the league. There's no guard in NBA history who's ever played 20 years with one team. He's going to be the first one. And I'm definitely going to be sad when he's gone. I haven't really started to get my head around it. I know we got one more year. But I think everybody, not just me, but everybody's going to miss him when he's gone.
With your UCLA ties, your short Clipper career, and now the Lakers, what's been your actual favorite NBA moment or basketball moment?
Wow, that's a good question. I would probably be tied to one of the finals, and watching the Lakers break through after, I covered that Kobe Shaq team. My first year at KCAL was 1996. So I got there right before Shaq and Kobe did. And I was there for the drafting of Kobe and the acquisition of Shaq. And I saw those guys struggle, and I saw them get swept by the Spurs and swept by the Jazz. And so it was really cool watching them win that first title against Indiana in 2000. And, that ride along the way was really fun. And I think the game I'll remember more than any other when, it's time for me to hang it up is Game 7 of the 2000 Western Conference Finals.
Against Portland.
When it looked like Portland had the Lakers dead to rights. Blazers were up 15 in the fourth quarter. Game 7 looked like it was over. Portland went cold. The Lakers started making everything, and were able to come back, pull it out, and win the title. So it would be somewhere in May or June of 2000 where they finally broke through after watching that group try, a bunch of different coaches. They tried Del Harris, they tried Kurt Rambis. To watch Phil bring them together and for that group to win a title was really fun.
So, after Kobe retires, how long do you think it's going to be until he actually gets a big statue right outside Staples Center?
Well, you can't get put in the Hall of Fame until 5 years after you've retired. So I think that he may get the statue actually before he goes in the Hall, but it'll be there. I think he'll be the next one. I don't think there's going to be any Laker players that don't have a statue unless they decide to give one to Elgin Baylor. So I think Kobe will be the next one, and then I think it'll be 3 to 5 years after he retires.
Yeah, I think it's such a bad rule, right? I mean, having to wait 5 years to go to the Hall of Fame, I've never understood why that was. I mean, who these guys are, coming out of the league already, how great they were. That always puzzled me. But, there's been rumors, in the next year or two, Durant is up for free agency, Russell Westbrook, and Russell Westbrook has, I guess, more of a tie to LA because of UCLA. What do you think the odds of landing them, or at least one of them?
Well, I never assume anyone's coming until they actually say they are, because I heard for years that Lakers are getting Dwight Howard. Then they got him and he left. And then I heard this year the Lakers are getting LaMarcus Aldridge and it doesn't look like he's coming. So you've got to kind of wait for it to develop. But James Harden and Russell Westbrook are both from Los Angeles. Kevin Durant lives here in the off season. I mean, people would have to be crazy not to want to play for the Lakers in LA. They're going to get somebody at some point, but until they get them, you can't really speculate.
There's been kind of this, I guess, this kind of like a bad rumor put on the Lakers lately that they can no longer attract free agents, or it's because no one wants to play with Kobe Bryant. Why do you think people have that type of feeling out towards the Lakers? Because that's really not the case.
Well, I think, the Lakers were on top of the mountain for a really long time, and these things tend to be cyclical. I mean, you have an opportunity for, the Lakers and Jerry Buss on the team were in the finals pretty much every other year. They were in the finals 17 times in, 36 years of ownership. So we were spoiled for a long time, and you're going to go through dips. and I think the Lakers are just in a dip. Um, and so, I mean, you've got to kind of look at it realistically that way.
Yeah, I kind of feel like they've ran into a little bit of bad luck. I mean, you give Kobe in his latter years a big contract, and then, he can't stay healthy, and then the free agency period wasn't really right for us the last year or two. We really haven't had anything to either offer or give up. So, yeah. But I agree. We're in that dip, and I think it'll turn around. But either way, John, we're huge fans of yours here at Blue Collar Sports. We always listen to your show. We think you're absolutely fantastic. We love what you do. We love you and Mace and all the guys on there, and we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come on and talk to us over here at Blue Collar Sports, and just want to thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. Thanks.
Thank you, John. And,
Thank you.
We look forward to hearing you more and more on the radio, and hopefully the Lakers season has a big turnaround than it did last year.
From your lips to God's ears. I hope you're right.
Yeah. Thanks again, John. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Have a great day.
You too.
Well, that was John Ireland, everybody, from ESPN LA and the voice of the Lakers. That was pretty cool, huh, Jim?
I was starstruck for a couple minutes there.
Yeah. John's a great guy. We've said it a million times already. Big fans of his. So, but yeah, free agency today has not been one for the Lakers to be happy with.
One for the Laker haters to be happy with, though.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I know, but the way I look at it is, would I have loved Marcus Aldridge here? Yeah. Is it that bad that they didn't get him? Probably not, because that contract could have turned out to be real bad real quick, just because he's 30 years old on a 4 or 5 year deal. You're paying for him at the backside of his prime.
Paying for him to crawl out of his prime.
Yeah, he's going to be declining
Yeah.
as each year goes, and you're still paying him $20+ million a year. Might be better that we didn't get him, even though I would love to have him, and he's still a Marcus Aldridge. He's still going to give you, high production. But
so what has happened today?
Well,
Marcus Aldridge
basically-
hasn't signed with anybody yet, right?
Aldridge
though?
hasn't signed anyone, and his agent actually tweeted out that that's LaMarcus Aldridge hasn't counted any team out yet. That's all those reports are false, and LaMarcus looks forward to sharing his destination this upcoming week. But and so
Pretty much everybody's stayed put so far, huh?
yeah, well, it's hard to walk away. But the one that today that Amir Johnson left Toronto, their center, he signed with the Boston Celtics.
And then I seen that Carroll from Atlanta
got
signed with
paid.
Toronto, right?
Yeah, he signed with Toronto 4 years, $60 million.
Yep.
That is so much money.
So
And-
but everybody else has pretty much stayed put.
yeah, Middleton stayed in Milwaukee. He got a lot. But Tyson Chandler, he signed.
Oh yeah, with Phoenix, right?
signed with
4
Phoenix.
years. That was kind of like a lot of people's contingency
It
plan.
was a 4-year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a Laker contingency plan as well.
Clippers. If DeAndre
Yeah,
Jordan
if
did,
DeAndre Jordan leaves.
they were
And
saying he was going to sign a trade for him, but
I don't think DeAndre Jordan's leaving the Clippers anymore either, because when you look at that team right now, who's on that team that in
Oh, in Dallas?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's like, do you want Dirk, who's 40, or however old he looks like
you
he's
got
40?
Dirk and Chandler
Monte
Parsons.
Ellis?
Monte Ellis is gone.
He's gone too?
Yeah,
So
he's-
both their point guards are gone?
He's gonna sign in probably most likely Indiana,
Okay. Yeah, why would you want to go there?
which that's gonna be good for Indiana because you have Paul George coming back healthy, and now you finally have another scorer that they didn't have all those years versus Miami.
Yep.
Because once he would sit down and David West would sit down, that team would.
David West is a free agent too, actually.
Yeah.
Has
But
he signed with anywhere?
He's about, what, 34, 35?
He's got to be up there in age. He was already like kind of hitting 30 when Chris Paul was a teammate, right?
Oh, yeah, so he's probably closer to 40.
Yeah,
He's
he's
got to be about 36, 37.
Yeah.
But he is an old man game, though, anyway.
So let me ask you this: the Kings. Have you thought about the Kings roster next year? It's gonna be pretty good, man.
I don't know.
DeMarcus Cousins, Rudy Gay, and they're thinking about signing Rondo. Even if they don't get Rondo, Darren Collison,
They had that already.
Willie Cauley-Stein. I don't know. I just feel like it could be.
I can't see. I don't know how. It really all depends on DeMarcus Cousins, but DeMarcus Cousins has to take that big step that I'm gonna be level-headed. I'm gonna be a leader. I'm not gonna be a crybaby prima donna that he's been. But he knows his team's bad, and Rudy Gay's Probably
How's Rudy Gay? What, like, why doesn't he win anywhere?
because he sucks, dude.
He doesn't suck.
I mean,
though.
look it. He doesn't suck, but okay, he can fill it up. You know, he can score. He can score with the best of them. Can't play any defense. He's not a high
That's his
IQ
problem,
guy.
huh? He just
Yeah.
can't play D.
He's not a high IQ guy. You know, he's probably more primarily a jump shooter slasher. He's not going to break you down on the low post, and so I mean, he has kind of a limited offensive game, but it's a good game, and he doesn't really play defense at all.
Yeah. Huh.
You know, and then Darren Carlson's good though. I mean, but they still have no bench. You know, Derek Williams. I guess
What happened to him, man?
a lot of teams are interested in him right now.
Well, because he's only been in the league for 3 years now. He
He's
was
like
like number
24.
3 pick. It's
Yeah.
like, come on, dude, figure it out.
You know who was looking at Wes Johnson today? The Clippers.
I'm not gonna get involved in anything until it's true. I don't want to be the rumor.
I don't understand why Doc Rivers is bringing Jamie Foxx to the meeting to meet with DeAndre Jordan and him.
Jamie Foxx.
Yeah, I don't because Jamie Foxx is a well-known Dallas Mavericks fan. So I was like, when I heard that, I was like, what? Because there's even been because Jamie Foxx even told the story when him and Kobe when the Lakers got swept.
Oh, by Dallas.
Yeah,
With the
Jamie,
elbow?
him and Jamie were going back and forth with text messages.
Huh.
So, I don't know. That's kind of weird to me, unless I don't know, he's getting paid for it, or something like that.
Yeah, or like, hey man, we're gonna put you in a movie if you stay with the Clippers.
Yeah, I guess. But I don't know. So yeah, I mean, everyone's pretty much stayed, except for none of the major guys have moved. That's
Dragic stayed.
Dragic stayed. Yeah,
I mean, Wade opted out though.
he's gonna get more though, because they're putting the deal together for him. He wants a lot of money.
Let me ask you this: why wouldn't like LeBron, who's on the verge of winning in Cleveland, why wouldn't he just sign for like $1 million this year, just for 1 year,
And everyone said that to get someone else.
to get someone else? Like, you know, he's gonna make up that $24 million somehow. Like, he could, if they win a title, like his jersey sales alone will probably make up for it.
Yeah. He can just pick up an extra.
He'll never have to pay for anything in Cleveland ever again.
He can pick up an extra endorsement over the years.
Yeah, just do a couple commercials a year instead, and
Do an extra T-Mobile.
there's your
commercial.
$23 million right there.
Yeah, do another T-Mobile commercial. He'll be good. Yeah, I mean that makes sense too. But
Because if he, as bad as he wants to win a title, like winning one in Cleveland would mean more than the 2 he won in Miami. Just because like Cleveland needs something. Cleveland hasn't won a title in any sport in like since like the '60s.
yeah,
He'd be a god.
yeah, Cleveland. They got it rough over there. They got the rock
You
and
hear
roll.
that, Kyle?
Yeah, they have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland,
'cause everyone-
and they don't even celebrate the inductee ceremony in Cleveland. It's always like in New York at Madison Square Garden.
He wants
so-
to go there.
Yeah, I'm not going there. They got an empty museum full of dust, man.
But yeah, I don't know. Or like, I mean, Dwayne Wade. He's he's what? I think I saw the graphic a couple days ago. He's saved the Miami Heat like $27 million over the last like 10 years or whatever
By taking pay cuts.
by taking pay cuts. Like when LeBron first came and Chris Bosh first came.
But now it's time to take care of them.
Yeah, but now it's like if they don't, he's just gonna walk away, and it's gonna be, I don't know,
I know, and
sad.
I hear that the wonderful Lakers are trying to put a meeting together. Won't that be great? 2 broken down shooting guards.
Yeah, especially if like signing Russell.
And even like John Allen was saying, 50 to 60 games from Kobe. It's like, oh no.
50 to, yeah, it's like barely even half the year.
Yeah.
41's half the year, right?
At least 65. You can give me 65, right?
You would think so. You would
know?
hope so. That's funny.
Oh, it's so sad. But yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see how it plays out.
We didn't talk any baseball with them either.
Well, what's there to say? It's right now is a big time in NBA. So, but all right, guys. Well, that's our show for today. We'll likely, I think, be back on tomorrow with Juan and maybe Dominic Verdine from the RingTV.com. So we'll see. But
Did you see Thurman today on ESPN?
What do you say?
He wants. I guess he's gonna fight Mayweather after his fight coming up. He fights in like a week, right?
Yeah, on ESPN.
Yeah.
But I heard that Marcellus on ESPN yesterday was saying, on ESPN Radio was saying that I guess they live. Mayweather has a place right by Marsalis' place, so Marsalis was coming home and saw Floyd, and they talked, and I guess he asked Floyd, who do you have next? He said he's going to fight Andre Berto. That sucks.
I don't even know who that is.
I mean, he's a decent fighter, but Andre Berto, that's who you're going out with? Come on. That's your...
Yeah, Thurman said he wants to fight him.
He said he's not even going for 50. Like, he's just going to retire after this one.
Really?
He said he's beat up, he's tired. You know, there's a lot of wear and tear on his body.
Yeah, he ain't fighting anybody big then for his last fight.
I mean, I can see the wear and tear because he does so much running on his legs that, you know, I don't see how his arms or hands are hurting because he doesn't throw that many punches. But
that's funny.
Yeah. But, all right, guys. That's Blue Collar Sports. Thanks for listening. Talk to you guys hopefully tomorrow. So stay tuned. We'll have more free agency hype and build up and whatever's going on.
Yeah, in 24 hours, a lot could change.
A lot can change. DeMarcus Cousins could be a Laker. Maybe Aldridge decides to come here. Maybe DeAndre Jordan leaves and goes to Dallas, which would be awesome. So, all right, guys. Have a good night. This is Blue Collar Sports, and we are signing off.